Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel and podcast. It's Monday night. It's Chris and Mark back asking the same thing we ask every Monday night. What's going on? Just before we get into what's going on, you are aware it's the transfer window. All hell is breaking loose. And I've got to start this off by declaring something. So the Evermore podcast did receive a derisory bid from the German podcast Talking Foosball to sign off Statman Mark. And I rebuffed it and said, no, he's not for sale. He's sticking with the Evermore podcast. Mark, what's going on with you?
I'm depressed on that one. You didn't tell me anything about that. Shocking.
I said, "Oh, Wiedersehen." I said, "Oh, Wiedersehen, pet," is what I said, mate.
What were they offering wages-wise? I might still go.
No, it was a couple of Frankfurters and some Bratwurst, I think, and maybe it was half a Stein. It wasn't even a full Stein. That was the deal breaker. If I got a full Stein, it would have balanced out the FFP. So I said no. Very poor effort, mate. Undervalued your work. Sprechen Sie Bollocks, says George. We've started early. So, yeah, we've got loads to get stuck into on this windy evening. I'm sure you've all been out blowing a gale. I think I opened my back door and I kind of felt
blowing what now?
Blowing what now? There comes the back. I opened the back door and I felt a bit like, remember that scene in Moonwalker when he turns into Smooth Criminal? It was a little bit like that, really. Apart from there was no gangsters and in fancy dancing, just loads of wind. But yeah, it has been a bit of a hectic time in the northeast. Hopefully everyone is okay. They haven't had any power cuts and outages and trees landing in the garden and so forth. But we're here to talk about Newcastle United, and my God, it has been a 24 hours for the football club. There's no football on. We thought it was going to be quite quiet. Jesus, how daft were we? So we've got loads to get stuck into. Before we do, just a little reminder, if you haven't already, click subscribe. I'd love you to come and join us. We're over 6,400 subs now, so thank you so much to everyone who smashed that button. We really appreciate it. 7,000K is the next limit, or 7,000 is the next limit for subs. We've got a great prize lined up for that, so help us get there, guys. Recommend us to family and friends. We are live tonight, as loads of you have already popped in their comments. It'll be hard to keep up with these, Mark. We'll have to star them up and pull them up as much as we possibly
will.
Exactly. So everyone's in a chatty mood tonight, which is awesome. We love it. All free content evermore. But if you do want to become a member, there is an option down there for you. And it helps support the channel and helps me and Mark bring you this great content and keep talking foosball away from Mark in the future. So I'm only joking, talking foosball. I'm sure you got a great podcast. You were just the first name I saw on Google when I Googled German sports podcasts. So I kind of half made my joke work. Anyway, so let's get stuck in then. So there's no better place to start really, Mark, than deal or no deal. Who is not for sale at the minute in Newcastle United's portfolio? There seems to be a wrath of bids for our footballers, especially our older footballers. What has been your take on the madness of the last kind of 24, 48 hours at Newcastle?
It's been a bit of a whirlwind, hasn't it? Because we've gone from absolutely nothing. And to be honest with you, full disclosure, I think we kind of contemplated not doing anything tonight because there wasn't really an awful lot to talk about heading into Saturday. And then it's mad. I mean, you have the Joe Linton sort of rumours the back end of the week. You've got Trippier bids, Callum Wilson bids, Miggy bids. It's exploded this week. And I'm going to go back to last week or the week before when I said I thought this break would be when stuff started to move, regardless of how busy it would be. I didn't expect it to be like this, but it's just been, there's been a little bit of chaos, I think, in the last sort of 48 hours, hasn't there, where nobody, I mean, we don't know what's going on.
I'm not sure Eddie Howe does either, mate.
I don't think anybody does, to be fair. It's been nuts, and look, there's potential movement out, which means there could be potential movement in, but there's no real links to show for inbound, but there's then the potential that could all change within the next 24 hours because all of a sudden there's then money to spend. So it could all kick off in the next sort of seven or 8 days.
Yeah, I mean, it is a weird one. I mean, you suppose you got to look at it, take off your black and white blinkers for a little bit. We are in the midst of the FFP situation. There's no getting around that. We're about a £73 million loss when we declared our numbers. And if you look at the players who have been subject to these discussions, again, there's no smoke without fire. I mentioned this when we did our Trippier video about, could Newcastle live without him, if he was to leave and everything else. But, when you look at the Trippier situation quite practically as well, he's 33 years old. He's been brilliant for Newcastle. He's still brilliant for Newcastle, in my opinion. I'd rather not see him leave, as I said in the video. But 33 years old, his replacement is already at the club. Could step in and do the job and probably do it quite admirably. He's had some big ricks this season where he's not quite looked himself. I mean, he's probably got about, if he's lucky, 2 or 3 years left at the top level maximum. Bayern Munich could come in potentially and offer them a chance to win trophies and play Champions League football. And then if you think about all of the rumours off the pitch, which we don't give too much oxygen for, but again, no smoke without fire. If there's a situation where being in Newcastle isn't good for the Trippier family, whatever the reason, then maybe that move could make sense. I'd be a bit disappointed if he did go, but I wouldn't be mad at him if he did either, because you'd understand it with all the differences that's going on. The weird one, the Trippier one, in a weird way, like I say, makes sense, despite how important he is to us. The one that's came out of the blue is Callum Wilson, isn't it? I mean, that one's come out of the blue from nowhere, because Callum's been obviously injured off, Tottenham stand, probably looking like an Adonis in the sunshine, I'd imagine, over in Dubai, and doing a bit of football as well, to be fair. Callum's never really pushed for a move. He's never angled for a move. But we were talking about this, Mark. We were saying that maybe, just maybe, that there is talk of another centre-forward coming in, definitely in the summer, and a big centre-forward. And maybe it's just sparked up a little bit of an interest for Wilson and his agents to say, do you know what? Let's put some feelers out in January. You never know if somebody's interested in you. You're in England international. You've got a great goal record. There's a few clubs around the world who would love a striker like you, even for the next 2 or 3 seasons. And the agents have put the feelers out, and all of a sudden we've had a nibble from Atletico Madrid and AC Milan, 2 massive clubs, and it would represent a great opportunity for Callum Wilson. But the bit that I kind of get my head around is, why would we sell him right now with nobody else to come in? That would make no sense to me.
No, not at all. The whole loan idea would be shot down instantly, because there's just no point. That's not going to help FFP circumstances at all. Not immediately anyway, unless an obligation to buy in the summer, but then that doesn't help you now. That would seem a massive backward step for the club if they were to do that. I think to sell, I can understand it. The Trippier one, I sort of get. Tino's done exceptionally well. The question mark would be the second right back. I mean, Kraft can play there. I guess if he's going to be your backup for the rest of the season. Do they recall Harrison Ashby perhaps?
He's looked good. He looked good for Swansea the day.
Decent, but then if he's getting game time, then that's where I'd want him to stay, because he's going to continue learning at a fairly decent level. And then you've got the backup of Kraft, so that one makes sense. The Wilson one doesn't make any sense unless you've got somebody inbound, because that's it. You're then running on one striker, and that's, football suicide. We've seen with Isak the injuries that he can pick up, the amount of time that he spent out over the last season or 2. You can't run into the rest of this season with just one striker. So if Wilson's to go, there has to be an inbound. There can't be nothing happening in that area.
Yeah, there's got to be. Simon's just saying that, can we not sell you to Saudi and then loan you back for the rest of the season, mate? I don't know. You have to check with the missus and make sure that's all right for you, mate. So.
Warm weather won't suit me. I'll tell you that much. I will not do well in that heat.
Mark will come back in an urn, I think, if he goes over to Saudi Arabia in that weather, to be fair. Probably much like me. I would burn before you, to be fair. But yeah, I think you're right about the Wilson one. It would make no sense unless there is indeed somebody else coming in. And whether that's a young player on loan like an Ekitike, or whether that's a more experienced striker. I mean, it sounds a bit nuts. I said it to my dad, who cheerfully shot it down, as you would expect old Jimmy C to do, about Benzema being unhappy over in Saudi Arabia. And he says, Benzema's not coming to you. Now, he probably isn't, but even something mad like that, there's been loads of talk about Newcastle looking to activate the Benjamin Sesko release clause in the summer, which is only €45 million. There will be a fucking bidding war for that kid. Was he 20 years old? And he looks shit hot. He really, really does. And if Newcastle could bring in either a Mitro or a Benzema, which I know is a bit fanciful, for a 6-month loan spell, and then Wilson suddenly finds himself the third choice striker because he ain't going to get a game ahead of one of those two. Maybe that's why this move has started to kind of materialize a little bit. And then you have one of them, for the remainder of the season for cover for Isak and alternative options for Isak. And then the summer you go big and you get Benjamin Sesko in, and him and Isak are the two strikers. You know what I mean? So that would make perfect sense. But we all know football isn't a perfect world. Comment from Woody coming in, our mate Woody. Why is it taking 21 days for all this to start coming out? Yeah, we're going to get into Eales in a minute, Woody. Eales dropped a bollock with a statement. Should have been on the front foot from January 1st. It's a bit of a shambles. It's interesting, just a slight step away from our lads, who are up for sale, just on the back of what Woody's saying there. Calvin Phillips looks like he's going to sign for West Ham. Now, my take on that, Mark, before I come to you, is I think the club have dropped a serious bollock on that one, to use Woody's words there, that we needed a number 6. We needed a number 6 in the summer. We needed a number 6 in this window. There was a number 6 available, England international, a good player who apparently even wanted to move here. And we fucked around and dicked about and pissed around 21 days, 22 days into this window. And now it looks like that player is going to go to West Ham. And West Ham already had a brilliant summer window, to be fair to them. And that's another great addition for West Ham in their midfield. I mean, the club have really dropped the bollock there, haven't they? Never mind wingers and strikers. That number 6 position was so key for this window. It looks like they've let a player go away, unless they get a better player from Saudi Arabia on loan, like a Milenkovic Savic or something like that, or they go and get who's the boy from Mönchengladbach? Is it Kone? I've seen him being linked. Unless they go and buy a player like that, they've dropped a bit of a bollock here, haven't they, with Phillips?
Phillips is an interesting one because he would take a bit of time to get up to speed. Ideally, you want somebody that's been playing regularly to come in at this point in time just to hit the ground running. He's not played enough football to kind of get to come in and play 90 minutes each and every game, which is sort of what you want. But I guess it all comes back to FFP and the sustainability, the PSR, because if what Manchester City were wanting financially now through to the end of the season may have been far too high for right now. Now that might have changed if one or two were to leave in the next week, but all of a sudden he's then off the table. I do think Phillips would have been a great signing, but yeah, it's one of those where I'm not entirely sure that he comes in and just hits the ground so quickly, because he will take time to adapt to what Eddie Howe wants him to do. He's going to take time to get his match sharpness there, and I'm not sure at this stage you can afford to have a month with him catching up.
And 7 million is crazy for 4 months, as Roger rightly says.
Exactly right.
That is a lot of money. I mean, you're right in what you're saying. And again, all of this, these are all ifs and buts and coconuts, really, aren't they? In terms of if the club gets it right, we'll all be sitting here on February 1st going, hey, bloody hell, well, who are we to judge or question any of those guys? If we end up signing, Kone from Mönchengladbach, I'd rather have him over Onana personally. A guy who hasn't been that good for Everton doesn't really appeal to me. Give me Kone, because I've seen him play numerous times. We've done rumour has it on him before. He looks a real quality defensive midfielder. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's young as well. He seems to have all of the attributes there of a player that we need. So that kid for me would be a great sign. And if Newcastle end up with him in February 1st, and then we end up with an upgrade on Miggy, again, which we'll come on to in a second, and another striker who's better than Wilson, and we're laughing really, aren't we, in terms of the way we've played the game. But these are massive ifs for Newcastle United in this window. And as Woody rightly says, we've got 8-9 days left of this window or something like that. So they really have left this quite late in terms of getting the deals done. And again, Roger's right in terms of the Neves, their Saudi loans. The Saudi loan deal hasn't seemed to come up at all. Now Newcastle were very, very keen on getting that done, and it doesn't seem to have been done. But that kind of caveats into Miggy Almiron a little bit. So Miggy Almiron has been linked to is it Al Habab? Is it Al Habab? What are they called?
Al Shabab.
Al Shabab. I was going to say that's probably one of the easiest ones to say, and I got it wrong. Never mind. Al Shabab.
Poor effort.
Well, you know, Al Kebab. I'll have a kebab and cheesy chips. I'm only joking. I'm not going to go to.
To be fair, Al Kebab would have been ideal for a joke in here one, wouldn't it?
Well, if Steve Bruce wasn't the manager of Al Kebab, I'd have been fucking stunned. I really would have been, to be honest with you. But anyway, so Miggy's obviously been linked to this club. It's not even a PIF club as much as all the salty Arsenal fans who still haven't got over that defeat, by the way. Fuck me. They need therapy, those people. They really do. But they were calling corrupt and all this shit. They're not even linked. They're not even a PIF club. But maybe there's something in the Miggy move in terms of, you know, the Saudi Arabian clubs. I've heard that Al Hilal might be interested in Miggy. And maybe if Miggy goes to Al Hilal, we'll see somebody coming back over, like a Mitro or like a Savic possibly, or Neves. You don't know. There might be one of those players that comes the other way on loan. But, you know, Miggy Almiron's an interesting one. You know, I mean, I put a little jokey post out, didn't I, on X with the Thor line. Is he, though? You know, and people say, oh, he'll be such a big miss. Is he? Will he really, though? You know, you're talking about a winger who has very little end product. Yes, runs around a lot like the road runner on Smack, smiles nonstop. You know, and that's great, you know, but doesn't really do anything. He couldn't even put a ball in the back of net from 1 yard with his wrong foot. So if you can get 20 million quid for a 30-year-old player and then reinvest it in quality mark, you've got to take that deal. Out of them three, Trippier, Wilson, and Miggy. Miggy's the easiest one to make a decision on, isn't it?
Possibly. And I guess the other side of that is how close to being back is or are Harvey Barnes and Joe Willock and Jacob Murphy. Because if those three or two of those three are relatively close to being back, it makes that decision far easier. 20 million for me seems a little short market value wise. I think
that's what we paid for him, isn't it? We paid that for him when he was 20. Was he 24 or 23?
But you've got to think he's been in the Premier League now for what, 4.5 years. He's done okay. He's an established Premier League player. He's got a year and a half left on his contract. He's on something like 60 grand a week. So there's value in that transfer, and I think that's above 20 million. I think if Newcastle was selling him to Saudi for 20 million, they'd be selling themselves really short, because there are others that have gone that are far in advance of his age. Yes, they might be well in advance of quality, but the age thing sort of brings that back down. And I just think that you need to be looking 25 to 30 really in that regard. But 20 million then allows 100 million of investment over the course of 5-year contracts. So
would you pay 30 million for Miguel Almiron if you were in the team?
But somebody will.
Yeah, I don't know, like Chelsea on an 8-year deal, probably.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned Chelsea, because some of the comments I saw about corruption coming from Chelsea fans on Twitter,
yeah,
and I was sitting there going, well, how many players did you sell to Saudi clubs in the summer? Was it 4? And that's pretty much bankrolled your summer and winter transfers. So maybe you want to take a sit down and shut up.
Well, not
before
to mention,
you start spouting off that one.
Not to mention there is Saudi investment in Chelsea as well, but that's by the by. So a couple of comments there. Kev saying obviously about Willock and Barnes coming back quicker than Murphy, but the issue I've got with that, Kev, is Willock perpetually injured all season. Barnes has a foot made of Ryvita biscuit, and Murphy has a dodgy shoulder. So even if all three of them are back tomorrow and said they were fit, will they stay fit? Who knows? As Ian rightly says, they've been coming back for a month, still no sign of them. I think Elliot Anderson's in a fucking wheelchair as well, by all accounts, the way his back is. So these players ain't coming back anytime soon. So you can't run the risk of getting rid of 2 or 3 players on the promise that these lads are going to stay fit, because they ain't stayed fit all season. J7, the Brazilian Geordie, can we not sell Matt Target as well? I think Forest want Matt Target, apparently, even though he's injured. So, you know, go and work that one out, to be fair. Aaron is saying...
Go back to the Target one. I mean, I didn't actually realise just what a wage Matt Target was on.
That explains why Joe Litton's pissed off, to be fair, because he's on less money than Matt Target.
Yeah, so you can. I mean, that would be an ideal one, because he's not going to play. He's just taking up squad space. He's a sellable asset. He's got a year and a half left on his contract, I think, if not longer. He's on £100,000 a week. If you can move him on now, move him on now.
Shift them, absolutely. But to be fair, though, if you look at that full-back position again, going back to that, you've got Livramento, Dummer can still play left back, Burns can play left back, Hall, we don't know how well Hall's progressing behind the scenes. He might have really kicked on, and Eddie Howe might go, fucking hell, he's took it all on board. He looks absolutely brilliant. You've got Harris Nashby playing really well on loan, and Kraft as well. So there's loads of cover there. Yes, you could easily shift a few of them out. Aaron is saying, I fancy Gordon and Barnes on the wings. I would as well, mate. Keep Wilson, get Willett back, get Garassi. Well, we've missed that £50 million release clause. That's eclipsed now. It's gone. So we wouldn't get him for that. Benzema alone, again, would be a good shout as well. But, that again, these are all ifs and buts. And, unless the club have been waiting just to get things done right at the end of the window to kind of just rattle through a few deals with nobody knowing, then that is something there. But we've been linked to so many players as well. There's been some great young prospects. We'll probably try to do a couple of rumour hazards on them as well. But you just don't know whether these are going to be players for next season. The likes of Benjamin Sesko, the likes of Leal, isn't it?
Desiree Doué,
yeah. And these are great quality young talents, European young talents that everybody wants. So if Newcastle steal a march on them, a bit like we did with Botman and Bruno, then happy days. But they ain't coming in this window. That's for damn sure. They'll probably be in the summer when we have a real rebuild and the seller money's there and the Adidas money's there and everything else as well. So this one would really be interesting. I think the Wilson one's an interesting one because if I'm Callum Wilson, going back to that one, and I'm 31, and I get a chance, if I think I'm going to be third choice striker, if I know there's a striker coming, and that's why they're clearing the decks a bit to make room for another striker coming in who's a really good striker, and Wilson's thinking, oh shit, will this guy take my space? AC Milan and Atletico Madrid come in for you. They're massive clubs. A chance from a play abroad, as George just said, Wilson on loan to William Hill before permanent move to Milan. I hear Sandro Tonali's already got a bet on that, mate.
Payback.
Yeah, exactly, payback. But maybe that could be the case, that Wilson will say, I'll have a couple of seasons abroad, something new for me, end my career, always come back and do his podcast and whatnot and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? So, I think with Wilson, he's maybe thinking that way. And because Eddie's known him long enough, maybe been really honest with him, and if it is a young striker coming in, like an Ekatike, that they're thinking, loan, an obligation to buy or whatever, and then maybe go big in the summer for a Sesko. Maybe Wilson knows his days are numbered, and that's why he could be the one going. But out of those three players, here's a question for you. Can you see any of them going? And who can you see going probably the most out of the three? Because the club have already said, before you answer that, before you phone a friend, you're perplexed there. Don't ring me, I'm on this.
Say you're my only friend. Thanks, man.
No, Mark has more friends, just to be clear, especially in Germany. Anyway, so out of those three players, like I said, the club have already said they'd be really quick to come out and say, we're not selling Wilson, we're not selling Trippier. Craig Hope said the offer for Trippier was quite a derisory offer. The club knocked it straight back. But there's no word on Miggy yet. So out of those three, what do you think? I know my answer, but
Wilson doesn't go without anybody coming in. That's as straightforward as it is. Trippier, I can guess that would be if Bayern come back with a reasonable bid, and I would suggest that's got to be between 12 and 15 million for Trippier. Otherwise, he doesn't leave either, because that's what he cost. He was 12 million to come in. It would free up a little bit. I can't remember what contract he signed when he first signed for the club. So there's a good chunk of what you paid disappeared off in the amortization ether, and then you can reinvest some of what you get in for him. But the key one for that would be Miggy, because he's 4.5 years into his deal, or since he signed. Sorry, we know that Ashley didn't play by the same rules as everybody else, so the likelihood is that he didn't amortize his.
He probably did. He
probably
paid
fee over 5 years. He probably paid it up, or it was cleared much more quickly. There wasn't really much to kind of shoehorn around at times with him because he didn't spend enough. So the full whack of Miggy's transfer fee in is likely to be available to pay out, unless there are real issues with FFP, in which case it's going to have to clear off something. But my guess with that would be if you got 25 million in, that's 25 million times 5 years of contracts to then spend elsewhere. So he's the ideal candidate to go now because you free up so much more money.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope they don't do what Simon said, an Ashley Classic. All three go, and we get an injured, washed-up Stephen Ireland equivalent on loan.
Rumour has it Hamza Chowdhury's available.
Can we finally get him over that line, to be fair? Hey, to be fair, Rudy's that way. Maybe we'll get him to play number 6. I know he's a fat bastard, but he can still move around the ball, can't he? He might be all right, to be fair. But yeah, I think Mark's disappeared. He's clicked the wrong button there. I think he'll probably be back in a second. But yeah, I just think it is an interesting one. I think here he comes. He's coming back in now. He's clicked the wrong button. You toesy bastard! You clicked the wrong button. You're on mute as well. No, you're back.
No, I'm back. I caught the side button on my mouse, and it's kicked back. Sorry about
that. Honestly, what? You can't even blame the cat for that one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, put 50p in the meter, Mark, says George. I thought it was wind, George. I was expecting Mark to do the next What's Going On from Oz or something like that, possibly, if he's been blown away, to be clear. There's no place like home. You would never get your feet in them glass slippers. Ruby slippers even. So yeah, I mean, for me, I'm with you. I think Miggy's probably the most viable. I think he's out of them three. He's, without being harsh, he's the least talented. He's the least effective player out of those three, I think, in this current squad. Now, Trippier and Wilson could very well have been told that they're on their bike in the summer. And maybe, again, this is what's instigated bids, possibly, that, maybe, the club have obviously opened up that mouth of theirs, in particular, Mr. Eales, which we'll come on to in a second. And because of that, the players know they're going. They've told their agent to go have a little sniff about, and they've come back with these offers. But for me, Miggy Almiron is the most sellable asset. But again, if you can get 25 million for Miggy, which would be amazing if you can, and you do the player amortization, and you spread that over the 5-year period, you can get yourself 250 million quid players and get them in this window. But you're going to have to act fucking quick. So I really hope the club have got players lined up to come in already. And this is just moving people around, as obviously Darren Eales said. And speaking of Darren Eales, moving on to the next section there, segue. So Darren Eales came out and had his little conversation, didn't he, when he declared the numbers and everything else. And he's very smooth, Darren Eales. He's very politician-like, isn't he, when he's talking? We saw him at a live event. And he was posing for photos, and and short of kissing babies and wearing a hat saying "Vote Eales," he was very much a political figure, wasn't he? Really, to be fair, suffice to say, we were about 6 pints in, but still, yeah, he was. He does come across that way. He says the right things to the right people at the right time. Whether people trust him or not, I think the jury's out a little bit. And this window will be a big measuring stick for that. I think that we didn't act very well in the summer. I think everybody knows that the transfer window in the summer wasn't great. People like Eales, again, keeping Miggy because of his commercial worth in America for that pre-season tour. They didn't want to sell Miggy Almiron. They wanted to keep him because Miggy will put bums in the seats because everyone in Atlanta loves him and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of understand that, but in the same breath, we should have upgraded him. We would never have got a better price for Miggy than we would have got in the summer. Maybe that's why he's going to go to Saudi, because no other fucker will pay 25 million quid for him other than the Saudis. So that's possibly what it is. But Darren Eales came out and obviously said what he said. And then off the back of that, all these bids come up for our players. So for me, the question I've got to ask you is, was it a case of loose lips possibly sinking ships, or do you think this was all premeditated and the owners, as in the PIF and everybody else, had advised Eales to do this kind of a thing?
I was kind of in the defense of it. I think he's probably opened the door a little bit too much to what's going on and been a little bit too honest, maybe about things. But the more you
bit of naivety in there for new owners, I think.
I think that's what my initial thought was. But I've started to think the other way, and I think this is purely as kind of George has just dropped in the comments there, purely premeditated. They've looked at the situation and gone, can we get the vultures circling and start to get. Well, we want market value, and they can command market value because they know possibly in the background they don't have to sell right now. There is a bit of my guess would be there's a bit of wiggle room in what's available to them, but they do need to free up some cash. So if they can play a little bit more on the yes, we'll sell we're going to play a little bit of hardball over the next 7 days, but ultimately we get what we want out of it, then maybe it's a good ploy to have opened the door to some of those negotiations that maybe wouldn't have happened before. And if that's then prompted buy-in to go, oh, hang on a minute, maybe we could get Kieran Trippier to come in, and it's on, you know, we can maybe get him a little bit cheaper, and all of a sudden it's, well, yeah, you can have him, but you're gonna pay market value. They may walk away, but I think the idea for them is a little bit of they're still playing catch up with Leverkusen. They didn't have a particularly good result at the weekend. It's a little bit more creature comforts for Harry Kane to have around the squad. Good service for Harry Kane. In that
he's better than Eric fucking Dyer, that's for sure. He's a better player than Dyer.
To be fair, I do think Dyer will do well in Germany because it's a different pace of football, and he won't get
slow pace.
I mean, he couldn't play a high line that Postecoglou wants to play, but he can play a deeper set centre back. But it's a little bit more creature comforts for him around. It then prompts conversations about some of the other fringe players, I guess, like Wilson, if you want to call him that. And I think that's where Atletico are suddenly going, oh, maybe we can sniff around and get him on the team. They've laughed off the loan deal, but then that prompts conversations with other clubs. So it might not be as stupid as maybe as we first thought to come out and go, how you've kind of opened the doors to how, you know, what a financial mess there is at the moment. It might not be as bad as they've sort of let on, but it's just been a ploy to prompt other clubs to go, actually, there's a couple of players we could get in, and then it opens the door for Newcastle to then go and buy who they really want to go and buy.
Yeah, possibly. Ian saying that he knew what he was doing. Just hope we don't waste money on McTominay, Solanke, etc. Me neither, Ian. Some of our so-called targets frighten the shit out of me. I mean, the Solanke thing, we were very quick to I did the video, but we both were in agreement when we talked about it. That I think Solanke's a purple patch player. I think this is the best season he'll ever have. I think next season he'll revert back to type. And I don't think he'll hit the heights that he has this season. McTominay is a funny one. I don't think he seems to know where he wants to play. He can't really play defensive midfield enough, so that rules him out for us because he's not a better player going forward than Joe Linton or Bruno. So why would we need him? Man United don't want him, but then they seem to need him when they can't get any goals. So yeah, it does concern me a little bit. I mean, we've been linked to so many really good players. I mean, somebody put Barella before in the comments there, and I did hear a rumor that the PIF was sniffing around trying to buy into Milan because obviously in the shit financially. Juventus are in the shit financially. So come the summer, we might be able to raid them for like Chiesa, Vlahovic, you know, raid into for Barella when there's more money there available, and we can spread the costs over 5 years. So maybe that's a plan overall. But one thing is for sure, everyone who's anybody, whether you do fan content or not, said this window is very important for Newcastle to add depth to this squad, not strip it away. So if you're going to lose potentially 3 of your starting 11 players, which is what they are, and you don't replace them with good enough quality, you're leaving yourself short, in my opinion. And I think Eales coming out and saying that is very Russian roulette. Yes, you might flush out bids for players, but you might not necessarily flush out bids for players that you want to sell. You know what I mean? They might look at players who maybe are key to you, like Trippier and Wilson. That might not have been the players that Eales was talking about. You know, maybe naively he thought somebody would have come and bid for Matt Ritchie and, you know, what they're going to give you, a bag of pickle and Chris and a fucking Kit Kat duo if you're lucky, because that's about as much as he's worth. Maybe, sorry, the normal Kit Kat chunky you'd probably get. You'd be struggling for a duo. You know,
I don't think you get a chunky. You'd be getting the 2 finger small,
little bite-sized one from the B&M packs. But this is my point. We don't really have any sellable assets. They're all done, washed shit, championship fodder is what they are, right? Even Lascelles, to be fair, Besiktas being linked to Lascelles. What are you going to get for Lascelles? You'd be lucky if you get 10 million from him, right? But if you
nothing now because he's out of contract in the summer.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
unless you give him a 1-year deal and then you have a little bit of value in there, that's not going to wash. They'll wait until the summer and see if they can get him on a free. But that is the likes of, you know, Richie's out of contracts. Dummett's got a year left. Dummett's out of contract as well. Carriers, Gillespie, they're all coming to the end of those deals. So they're all going to go. They're all going to need to be replaced. So you're right. There's no sellable assets. There's no young players to sell on because
apart from Longstaff, maybe as Paul says there, about the only one you would sell.
but you run into the same problem now, is that if you were to sell him, you suddenly leave yourself massively short again in the squad, because there's nobody else there, and unless you are going to go out and buy two or bring in two central midfielders right now, you couldn't do that. Do it in the summer, yes, brilliant.
Yeah,
you can do that. You can go and spend hundreds of millions in the summer, I think, with the money that's coming in, but that would not be a deal you would do now.
I wouldn't sell Willock at all, Stu, in the comments there. Not at all. I mean, you'd probably get about, if he was fit and firing, you could get about 40 million quid for Willock, but I wouldn't sell him in a million years. I think he's still a very vital player to the squad. And, even as you say about Longstaff, the difference is, Longstaff is one of them players who, I wouldn't say he'd be happy to be on the bench because he'll want to start, but he would be a squad player. He would be on the bench and he would come off the bench and he wouldn't kick up fuck. He would do a good job. He'd play in the cups for you and all that kind of stuff. And you need players like that to do that position in the squad that, aren't going to be first team kind of players. You look at even much bigger teams, I suppose, through the years than us. He likes of your Marco Reus, even Dortmund, who's been in and out the side because of his age and stuff like that. You do get players who sit in squads like that. But I do think Louis Miley's kind of leapfrogged over Longstaff in terms of that midfield position now, because I think he's done so well that they would rather sell Sean over Louis, I think, personally, right now, because Louis's got a higher ceiling. And
you don't sell a Lewis Miley. You just don't.
I don't think they will either. I think he's come on way quicker than they thought, and he's only going to get better and better. I'd love to see how good he is when he ends the season. In terms of his playing kind of ability and his quality and his form and stuff like that. But it is going to be really interesting. So there's 10 days left to go, and it is madness. We'll try and bring as much as we can, but we do work full time. Sadly, we don't do this full time, not quite yet. Keep subscribing, and you never know. But yeah, we will try and bring you as much as we possibly can. But Newcastle just decided to go nuts over the last 24, 40 hours. But sadly, not enough coming in. But we definitely need that moving soon enough. But a slight break away from players that we might lose to players that we do have, and there's been some bit of fun banter going on online. Now, just to be clear, that says where the Adidas, not Ladidas, as Mark said, because he's posh. He grew up in Whitby Bay, don't you know? So he's very posh. But anybody who hasn't seen them already, this is what we're talking about. So our three lads, Louis Miley, he hasn't gone to work for the post office. No, it's Louis Miley, Anthony Gordon, and Joe Linton throwing the boots around there. They've obviously done Adidas adverts, and they're going around online, and it's all about shouting goals, like a supermarket type thing, isn't it? With Adidas boots. By the way, we've already said this before, but I love the retro Predator coming back. It looks so good. It really, really does. But obviously, Joe, Louis Miley, and Gordon are having some fun in these adverts, man. It's nice to see our players, isn't it, getting involved in that again and doing the Adidas adverts. Remember when Big Les, Sir Les used to do them, and Gazza was there, and all these other players as well, and Stevie Gerrard. So it's nice to see our lads involved.
Yeah, I thought they were a bit of fun. I think some people have thought they were a bit cringy. But yeah, just look, it's a bit of fun. I guess liven up this 2-week period, give them, I don't know when they were done, but I mean, it's Marcus has just put there, and I think we've both gone for that one. I just back with Newcastle is huge. I think making a massive thing of this, it's a shift on from the sort of poor stuff that there's been from Castor, and it's a huge amount of money that comes into the club from the Adidas deal as well. So it's just good to see all of that sort of stuff. I like that sort of thing. As cringy as it might be, I like a bit of fun in and around the squad with things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I did laugh. We were talking about this before. There was a picture of Louis Miley leaning on the box, I think, having a bit of a smile, and we tweeted it and said, I want to see him do that when he scores a goal. So I really hope he does that celebration on the corner flags. That'd be quite funny. But we were talking about this, like Louis Miley's 17 years old. He's doing Adidas adverts. And we think, what the fuck were we doing at 17? I think we came to the conclusion of collecting glasses and bars, really, mate. It's what we were doing at 17 years old. And we certainly were professional footballers, played alongside Brazilian internationals, mate. So what a season the young man has had.
time deep in Jimmy's back in the day. There you go.
Yes. Back when Whitley Bay was Whitley Bay, you know, it
Jumping.
wasn't care homes and fucking estate agents, man. It was people puking on the side of the road in broad daylight and people walking past their buggies just swerving, stag doos, bollock naked, tied the clock towers. They were the days.
Absolutely. South Parade was my care home. I lived there for a good couple of years. So it was it was. I didn't go anywhere else. I lived at the top of the street. I worked down there. I drank down there, and that was my whole world revolved around. So that was my care home for a little bit of time, and it was good fun.
It was a great laugh. Probably not for the residents, mind you, but for us drinking, it was great. But
I met my wife down there, so
very true. And I met mine as well. Simon's saying that Miggy looks like he's doing his apprenticeship, but he is doing his apprenticeship right now. Simon, he happens to be doing it in front of 52,000 people alongside the Brazilian international. To be fair, Roger knows what we're talking about. Bank holidays. Bank holidays were exceptional. Roger, there was no bank holiday like a Whitley Bay bank holiday.
Legendary.
But, we have digressed a little bit. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice to see the lads having some fun doing these adverts as well. But moving on to the football, we are back in action this weekend. Huge game, Mark. Huge game in the FA Cup. Obviously away to Fulham down at the Cottage. We will do a proper match preview for it. I have to disappear with work for a couple of things next week, so I might not very well be around for this show or the post matches on Tuesdays. But now I've rescued him from a German podcast, you might get the other half over here doing it. So, but going back to the FA Cup, Mark, just before I suppose we do a proper preview, do you think this is the biggest game now for Eddie Howe in terms of the season? Because top four is looking out of reach. Top 6 or 7 is probably still an achievable target if everyone can stay fit and get fit. But the FA Cup, if we have a decent run, if we can beat Fulham and get a favourable couple of ties, we could end up in another cup final, couldn't we?
Yeah, I mean it's another route for Europe, and I think that's got to be a massive target now to get another European season in next year for the caliber of players to come in. You're not going to have some of the bigger names who want to come in and sit around for another 12 months with no European football. So I think it is a big game. Equally, you've got to look at it and go, you've got 48 hours then, or 72 hours, is it, until the game on the Tuesday night. And Newcastle have been handed another shit one where they play late on Saturday and then have to play on Tuesday. And obviously the fans are screwed over in terms of travel back on the Saturday as well. So, I mean, that hasn't gone down particularly well. But I can kind of see the ideal of resting for the cup and then going all out for the league, because you want to get as high up in the league as possible. But at the same time, there has become a bit of a gap certainly between Newcastle and Spurs in 5th. Is it 11 points?
Yeah.
The gap is now. So there's running out of time to kind of get back in that fight. So the FA Cup might be an ideal route to try and get that European spot.
Yeah, I mean, Roger's saying there's a truth that Eddie Howe might make 8 changes. I'm not sure he's got 8 players to change, Roger, to be honest with you.
Who's going to come in?
Especially for Sellable. No, Kev, I'm not saying it'll be the end of Howe, but I just think for me that it's a tangible chance to win something again in Europe, as Mark rightly says as well. Stu Mag is saying, my last complaints when I keep saying one of the biggest games of the season. She just doesn't understand. They don't very often do the Stu, to be fair, mate. But every game is the biggest game of the season until we lose it. Then it's the next game, isn't it? But this one, to be fair, I think it is a chance to get a competition, to get a cup, win a competition, get into Europe, as Mark says there. So they have to take it seriously, because the league is going to be tough to claw back. Yes, there's a fair bit of games to go in terms of the end of the season. You never know what could happen. We could go on a nice run and end up in a great position. But winning a trophy, if you finish 7th this season and win a trophy, that's a successful season. If you finish 8th and win nothing, then that looks as a bit of a backward step from last season. So then the focus is on Eddie for the start of next season. And then the knives will be out for him. And if Jose is fucking sniffing around in the background, the press will be all over that. So it's just. I think we could do with progressing as far in the FA Cup as possible. And if any of the big teams put themselves out, I think some of the ties pit what I would say rivals against each other, we could be in a really good position to win a competition, which is God. Well, I would love to win a competition, mate. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Eddie does come up with in terms of the changes. Merrick has just jumped in the comments saying this window has been twatful. Like, I love it, mate. I love that phrase. Sick of it. Yeah, do you know what? I said this in the day. I said, wake me up on fucking February 1st. I'm sick of this shit already, And we need to start signing some players big time. Mark, going back to this window thing. I knew this was going to be dominated by the window. Yeah, had to be. I mean, as Woody rightly said earlier on, he ain't got a lot of time left here. They need to get that shit together. They really do. And I just hope they've got these deals ready to go. And that's why they're making headroom, as Darren Eales said in his little interview, with shipping out some players, to create space for more. But yeah, if we finish this window, I'm supposed to finish on this before we go to Out of Toon. If we finish this window and we keep those 3 players, but we ain't added anybody, is it a shit window?
I think if the squad stays exactly the same as it was before, I would say yes. It probably has been, because you want maybe 1 or 2 just to give yourself options before the end of the season. It's not as bad as it could have been. Say you lose Trippier and don't bring anybody else in. You lose Miggy and don't bring anybody else in. But then is the whole idea that the progression is then for the summer, and the next season it opens up hundreds of millions of pounds to go out and splurge in the summer and really rebuild the squad. I can kind of see the sense in the progression argument at that point. But is that at the risk of writing off the season and finishing mid-table and almost doing a Chelsea from last year? I don't think. I said in the post-match the other week that if you'd gone into the season in any sort of competition in Europe and had the games that you'd had and finished in, say, 8th position and got to another cup final or won a cup this season, is that progression? And I think for me that definitely would be.
I would say so. Yeah.
If you're in and around the fight for Europe still at the end of the season and just miss out, but the long-term progression of the club is in a much better place, I still think that's progression. As shit as that might sound, with no European football and no cup final, I guess, or anything like that, I still think you put the club in a better position after 2-3 seasons than where it has. And it was always going to take time, and we've all talked about how maybe this season was a season too early or 2 seasons too early for where they finished last season. But I think it's just that frustration of knowing that almost the kind of the world's against them in terms they can't just go out and spend the money that they know they have. There is no risk to the club. There is no risk of financial ruin by going out and being able to spend the money. And that's ultimately the frustrating thing for fans now, is that you can see this money and you're sort of burning a hole in your pocket and you really want to go and buy these players, but are hampered by the shit rules of FFP the way that they are. I don't think it's horrendous if nothing changes, but I think if you lose 1 or 2 and don't replace them, yes, absolutely, it then becomes an absolutely awful window.
Yeah, you're right about the money. It's like having a Ferrari in the garage, but you can't find the fucking keys. That's literally what that's like in the minute. Comment there from Stu, which has made me chuckle. So he's sick of the Rory Jennings types these days. They don't care about actual sport. They're already obsessed with who's getting sacked next. Pathetic. I suggest you go and check our video list, Stu. You might find a video in there that is to your liking, mate. That's all I'll say about that. Marcus is saying that this channel is the funniest channel in all my time as Newcastle support. I hope we can keep it going. You guys are very balanced with discussions. There are times where we're all feeling pain. Thank you very much, Marcus. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, mate.
And yes, Kev, Out of Toon is coming, mate. Out of Toon is coming. Just for Kev, because he must be going to bed soon. So we are going to get stuck into Out of Toon first, Kev. So just right on cue, mate, right on cue. So the first place, it's a funny one, Out of Tune this week. I suppose it's a bit more serious than it normally is, but We're going to start with some.
Just to pre-warn, this isn't actually the laugh a minute Out of Toon that we sometimes have. There are a couple of serious ones in this.
There might be some piss taken about certain people in this as well, which you may chuckle at. But the main one to talk about first is this fella here. So when he's not trying to steal our captain and right back to come and play from at Bayern Munich, this is obviously Harry Kane, the England captain. So Harry's come out this week.
In case you didn't know who that was, yeah.
In case you didn't know who it was, I just wanted to pull him up, well, you never know. Some people might not know who Harry Kane is, Mark. But anyway, so Harry Kane, on a serious note, it's come out this week, and we're full of praise for him, really. I think everyone really is full of praise for him. He's come out and spoke really candidly about his own struggles with mental health, and he's encouraged people to speak out and talk to people, and just he spoke so eloquently about it. No jokes about how Harry Kane speaks, by the way. He spoke so very eloquently about it. One of the things that he said was, this is one of the statements that he said. So he said, life is full of experiences. Sometimes we don't have control over. As we go through tough times, we learn more about ourselves and build resilience. But most often, we can't do this alone and need the support of others. So we just thought we'd jump on and Out of Tune and say massive respect to Harry Kane for doing that, for saying that. In this world of social media where everybody's out to get you, you say one thing on Twitter and you got 100 weird little virgins in the room on their own. They've just finished a cry wank over something, a bird they'll never shag in a million years, and then they jump on and just hurl abuse at you. And it's for Harry. I told you I'd make somebody laugh. For Harry Kane to come out and have that bravery, while all these shit houses can get on their keyboards and call them everything under the sun. It's quite admirable, Mark, isn't it?
Yeah, he's one of a few that have sort of talked about it recently and quite candidly about their experience. And he is a top professional, Kevin. He is a leader in that regard, and that's the kind of thing I want to see from my captain. Is that when if you go to England circumstances, he's head and shoulders in that regard above an awful lot of those players, and he deserves a lot of praise for talking about stuff like that. It is still difficult for an awful lot of people to discuss in the public domain, but we all go through problems that are maybe not as serious, but they are to us, and sometimes it's just a little bit more difficult to talk about it, but definitely an admirable thing to get that conversation going again.
Absolutely. And again, just to add a little bit of light with shade, Simon is remembering those cry wank memories, and Merrick is having a good old chuckle at the cry wank as well. Yes. Yeah. And that is one of my favorite insults to those people. Mark quite often texts me when I end up a little squabble with somebody on X, because they're like gremlins, aren't they, on X? They get wet and then they just fucking pop out, and there's just millions of them, or they eat something after midnight and turn to absolute see you next Tuesday is on X, don't they? Really, it's a very toxic environment. That's probably worse that it's not the Bluebird anymore since old Willy Wonka bought it. It's fucking terrible, that platform. Anyway, side subject. So yeah, the next Out of Tune, again, sadly, guys, is a bit more of a serious subject as well. And these two kind of dovetail into each other, really. So I'll let you kind of explain this, Mark, being our resident goalkeeper. So there was something that happened in the AC Milan Udinese game that I think a lot of the guys watching will probably remember, but obviously it was the AC Milan goalkeeper. You pronounce his name better than me, mate. So I'll let you take this on and tell the guys what it was.
So Mike Maignan, the Milan goalkeeper. Yeah, it's another case of in Italy again, where we've seen problems with racist abuse, racist chanting from fans, and he walked off the pitch after abuse from the Udinese fans. And I think as I understand, an Udinese fan has been banned for life and I think arrested as well on the back of it all. But he did the right thing. He walked away from it. He's spoken to the referee, and it's just not. I mean, again, we come back to this. How many times have we had this conversation since we started this? It must be 5 or 6 within the last year and a half. where we've had to talk about chants coming from fans that are, racially motivated and stuff. And I cannot get my head around it. I really, really can't. And the fact that when he's talked about it, he's obviously, it's not the first time he's had to experience that as well. And we're talking about one of the biggest clubs in the world. We're talking about one of the biggest leagues in the world. And this stuff is still going on. It's just absolutely bang out of order. And there has to be harsh punishments. I really do believe that those clubs, if they can't stamp it out from those elements of their fan base, that there should be huge sanctions for them.
Yeah, and Kev's right there. Maybe even because Italy has a real problem with this. Maybe you threaten Italy with a ban from major tournaments. Which could be something that could prevent it happening. But there was sadly another incident as well, which again I saw, and it was horrible, really. I mean, it was Casey Palmer, plays for Coventry, and they're playing against Sheffield Wednesday. This isn't the first time Sheffield Wednesday fans have been pulled through the mud here for some horrific things that the fans had done. I'm pretty sure it was it Sheffield Wednesday fans who mocked the helicopter crash, I think, for Leicester as well. I'm pretty sure there was some of them that did that.
That was Coventry fans.
That was Coventry fans. Who was
Coventry
it?
Fans.
They did something else, didn't they? The Sheffield Wednesday fans. There was something else. I can't remember what it was. But I'm sure they did something. I can't remember what it was. They held a picture up on their phone, I think his memory serves. I can't remember what it was.
That was the Sheffield Wednesday fan who held up the picture of Bradley Lowry in the game against Sunderland.
That was it, to the Sunderland. That was it. I knew they did something.
As despicable as you can get, that is the lowest. But
I knew it was something.
We're talking about those sorts of chants again at Casey Palmer. And
there was no fucker in the stadium either. I mean, he literally goes to get the ball. The ball's in the stand, and he says, "Give us the ball back." And some of the fans are doing usual football fan wanking and all that. That's what football fans do. But there's this fucking idiot at the back, doing a monkey movement, and Casey Palmer straight away points to him, goes to the ref, and says, "Fucking stay at this prick." You know what I mean? And I think, have Sheffield Wednesday acted on this? I've not seen any follow up from it. Have they acted on this fan? Have you seen anything on that? Or
I'm just trying to be honest. I'm just trying to see whether they've managed to do anything, or whether I'm absolutely convinced that they'll identify him, because there was nobody around. So I don't think there'll be any difficulty in finding out who it is. I can't remember whether they managed to.
It was the easiest. It was the easiest "Where's Wally" I've ever done. There he is, fucking Bellend. Because there's nobody in the stand practically. But as Ian says there, where were the stewards? I mean, these stewards is it's a second job for them, really. It's a money top up, and they don't really do anything. I remember being at St James's Park, and I think an Arsenal fan or someone got into the crowd, and the fucking fans had to escort him out. He was throwing bottles at people that were hitting kids and stuff like that, and you were thinking, what the fucking hell's going on? The steward, they even went and told the steward and didn't do anything about it. And they had two Newcastle fans that frog march him out and toss him down the stairs, which they happily did. But it is, it is getting to the point now. There's kids that go to football games, man, and you think, you need to be better than that. You can't treat people like that. In 2024, man, we're supposed to be fucking human beings here. You know what I mean? It's disgusting, man. As Merrick says there, some vile creatures call through the gates. They do. Well said, Merrick.
They do, and unfortunately, it happens. It's less noticeable from the outside world, but it happens everywhere. It happens at St James's Park at times as well, and I think everybody gets got to be a little bit more switched on to get it. And it's difficult to do that self-policing thing of getting involved, but sometimes you've just got to point it out and call it out when it happens. And it is vile, it is disgusting, and it shouldn't happen, but it's just awful, man. And the fact that these players, and we've talked about it happening in Italy time and time again, it happens here. We know it happens here. We're not going to say that we're away from it at all, because it does. It takes something like Casey Palmer incident to put it in the spotlight again. And something more has to get done. And I go back to what I said before, but if this is regular occurrence, then there need to be harsh penalties for clubs for not stamping it out with those fans that are involved.
Absolutely. David's right there. He's bang on. You don't judge a person by the colour of their skin, 100%. George is saying, his wife's Chinese. He never saw all the casual little racist things that happen in his life until he met her. The scales, fall from your eyes. It's so hurtful. I'm sorry to hear that, George. That's awful, mate. That's your wife. That's a woman you love. And, and that's all you see is the woman you love. You don't see anything else, and nor should you either. And these people who do see something different, you should just see a human being. You should just see a person that's like you. I know this is the problem, I think, with these motherfuckers. Especially when they get into a football stadium, they seem to think all the rules of humanity just you leave them at the door when you go into the football stadium, and you don't. I mean, people shout wanker and tosser and you're shite and all that to players, and again, that's not nice, but that's kind of almost par for the course. And the players kind of understand that, but I just think, to racially abuse players is the lowest of the fucking low. And you're right, identify them, ban them from all football for all life. You're done. Just cook them. They're out completely and utterly out. A couple more comments here. Kev saying, remember the Terry Anton Ferdinand thing? And I do think so, though. He thinks Ferdinand made most of it up. I'd like to think he wouldn't have done, but you never know with that thing. Paul saying, I remember being about 7 in Newcastle playing Southampton when Carlton Palmer was playing. He came over to take a throw and he was racially abused and stuck with me all my life. That's awful, Paul. For young kids at that age to see that, Mark, it's awful, isn't it?
I've been at St James's and heard it aimed at Julian Lescott, and from the Gallagher, and it was horrible, and they got roundly abused back by everybody around them. Good. I don't know where it came from. I don't think they can have been a regular. But they started with it and were quickly shut up by the fans around, and that's what has to happen. More will come from that by fans rounding on them, and he was quickly shut up. But I mean,
that's what the fans need to do. I think the fans need to be a bit better, and they need to stamp that out when they see it. And that guy should have been, just basically hoyed out of his own stadium by his own fans. Really, one of a better word. But unfortunately, I don't think it'll be the last that we see of it. I think the game's got a long way to go. There's still that hooliganism element within it. All the fans, guys who bring their kids up a certain way, and until people learn to see people for who they are, and that's human beings. Do you know what I mean? I just think I think the world's got a lot of improvement to do, and it's a real shame for Casey Palmer and obviously the Milan keeper as well. And I just think that it's good that those players took control of the situation. Fair play to the referee as well in the game as well for making a point about it. But I think more teams that walk off the pitch, I think the better. Because if you take away the game, because people have paid the hard-earned money to go watch the game, people in that crowd who aren't racist pieces of shit, they'll turn on those people really quickly, won't they? When the game gets abandoned and people walk off, they'll find that bloke, they'll find that person or that woman, whoever it is, that's done that, and they'll fucking set about them in the crowd, and it'll be the last time they do it.
Yeah, and that's it. Look, if I know the comments around the punishment seems harsh, and the comment about somebody being sort of racist in Tesco's, I get that sort of argument. But it's when this happens time and time again that the clubs have to do something to try and stamp it out. They've got to do something to identify the people involved. But equally, as fans, have to do our part as well in that, and reporting it and trying to stop it with that. But if that starts to affect fans' ability to go to games, they'll start to get involved a lot more, and people, well, there'll be a few that get a hiding for that sort of thing. Not that we're advocating for that, but it'll happen.
Yeah, exactly. John C saying there he was 18 and remembers Les Ferdinand scoring a penalty in the Gallagher, and the racist abuse followed, and then he joined us. Fucking nuts, that, isn't it? That's football fans, isn't it? They're just all over. And one more on this. Marcus is right. Social media has turned fans into tribes. It's not a good look. It isn't. Social media has, ironically enough, has created so much antisocial behaviour it's absolutely mad. It really, really is. But yeah, I think that's us pretty much done for this week, mate. So it's not the normal jovial kind of out of tunes, but we did feel like it was something to say. We obviously had a bit of lightheartedness in the show, as we always do. But thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in the comments. It always helps the episode flow. As we mentioned at the start, if you haven't already, consider subscribing, recommend us to family or friends, help us try and get to that 7,000 mark. We would love to get there. We've had a cracking start to the year, so many subscribers. So thank you everyone who's done that. Like the video as well. It always helps the algorithms and helps people find us on YouTube, etc., etc. We'll be back with a match preview for the Fulham game, and I'll probably jump on for a post-match review, and then we'll be back again to do it all again for Aston Villa the week after. So have a cracking one, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later.
Take care, guys. See you.